we have lost the ability to produce weapons quickly enough. In the UK, there has been some upscaling of production, but particularly of 155mm shells. But I was just alarmed to read, for example, the number of elements which go into a 155mm shell, which we have to import these days because nobody's making them. Extraordinary. And even as we speak now, the British Army is going to be reduced to 72,000, which is hopeless. And the number of battle tanks is being reduced from 250 to 148 upgraded Challenger 3s. I mean, I just don't understand how politics works. So you have a war in Europe and you're supplying weapons to folk, yet you look at your own army and you're somehow reducing. It's unbelievable.
Unfortunately, this number of 72,000 is indeed very low. Naturally, the UK have had their tradition that their army grows in time of war on continental Europe. Otherwise, they focus on aviation and the naval forces. But 72,000 seem to be...
When it was reduced from 102,000 to 82,000, I was told that 82,000 was the absolute minimum because they calculated that if you had 82,000 soldiers, you would probably be able to find enough suitable ones to put in things like the SAS, the SBS and other special forces. So how they've come to 72,000, I don't understand. And you're right about the Navy, and that's a very valid point. Unfortunately, the production of naval ships is not quick enough either and takes too long these days.
And also in comparison, it's worth mentioning that Poland is right now in the process. At the moment, we have 170,000 soldiers, and the goal is to reach 300,000. There are even some people whispering that that goal might be increased to 400,000. That will naturally take probably another 10 years or so, or even more. But that is at least what they are aiming for. So it would be of great help if all countries in Europe started producing more and become a little bit more numerous.
Yes, it's alarming to think in the UK context that the national debt, the total national debt over the last 10 years, I think has more than doubled. And yet, in that period, we haven't been able to find very much for the armed forces.
And then, when we look at particular weapon system, at least something that the UK has been doing excellently here is to be at the forefront. Sometimes some of these other countries, the US, Germany, unfortunately, they wait. They are a little bit indecisive, and they are afraid to take the first step. So when Poland was putting pressure on Germany to allow German Leopard 2 tanks to be sent to Ukraine. Initially, it was Poland that wanted to do it. They were even threatening to do it without German permission, but that would lead to a crisis in relations between the two countries and a breach in trust of how you deal with weapons that you have purchased. However, there the UK came to our aid, as the Germans were saying that, well, no country has sent Western main battle tanks yet. Only you Poles have been sending old Soviet-era T-72s and modernized T-72s, but nobody is sending modern Western tanks. And then the UK sent Challenger 2s, so breaking that mental blockade, so to say. And later the same thing was performed with long-range missiles. Indeed. with the Storm Shadows. Hopefully we're waiting that the Germans will realize that now that has been done, then they can send their
part of the problem,
Taurus missiles as well.
when you look at the supply of weapons, isn't it something that I think is understood? We were collectively too slow. So this Ukrainian push, the spring offensive, or now the summer offensive, whatever it is, has been a bit slow because they've been waiting for weapons. And so their ability to deliver a sort of knockout punch to the Russians within Ukraine has been somewhat, I think, harmed because the Russians have had longer to dig in and they've been anticipating, and so it becomes more difficult.
Absolutely, and many of these weapons are still arriving much too late. For example, the decision to send them cluster munitions came a couple of weeks ago, and those cluster munitions started arriving just a week or so, and we are far into July. So if those weapons were available back in April, then it would have been a different thing. The same as you mentioned with these long-range missiles. If the Americans would send the so-called ATACMS or the Germans the Taurus, these long-range missiles, then it would be much easier for the Ukrainians to hit these weapons depots and other railway nodes, for example, that are far behind enemy lines. But this is the type of attacks that you need to do to deplete the opponent before you start attacking.
Adam, as usual, the clock in the corner of the studio has defeated us, so I'm going to have to ask you to pause there. We'll pick it up next time. There we are. Time and tide wait for no man, certainly not in television studios. Anyway, fear not. If you join us next time, as we hope you will, we'll continue the story here on Poland Daily History. Thank you for watching.